Welcome back to a best of 3 series of top level StarCraft 2. What I've got for you today is a Terran versus Zerg, where in game number 1, we find ourselves on Amphion. Interesting for a map number 1 in a best of 3 series. Normally this is a quick veto for the Zerg, so we'll have to keep an eye out on exactly what our Zerg player decides to go for. But spawning right here in the bottom left hand corner, playing with the blue Terran SCVs, we have GuMiho. The Gumi god himself, the Towel Terran. Everybody loves watching this man play, especially when he's cooking up some fresh StarCraft strategies. His opponent in the opposite left side of the map corner. I almost autopiloted wrong right there with my commentary. In the top left corner, playing with the red Zerg pieces. We're looking at Solar's main hatchery. Alrighty, so far nothing all too weird. Generally speaking, this is a map that a lot of Zerg players will like to veto. They don't really enjoy playing on Amphion as much, although I know the win-loss ratios have become a little bit better for this particular matchup for the Zerg overall. If we look at the win-loss ratio right now, okay, it's actually 50-50. 45 wins for the Terran, 45 wins for the Zerg on this particular map at the tournament level. That used to be more in favor of the Terran, but apparently no longer. Overall, though, it's still not an amazing map for Zerg. Still about a 46% win rate against Protoss, but apparently against Terran, not really something that bothers Solar all too much. I still feel like, here's why it's a little bit of a mismatch in my mind. GuMiho is a really tricky player, right? GuMiho, he plays very similarly to, for example, the way that Dark likes to play Zerg. This man can definitely play standard. His default is to play standard, but he can also do a little bit of everything, and it makes it very difficult for the opponent to guess as to what Gumi is actually up to. Plus, this map is just a little bit funky. You have that left side with the little mineral fields that can be mined out. You obviously can fly a command center over in that direction. There's that base at the 3 o'clock. You're also not spawning diagonally from one another, which I already highlighted when I introduced the players. You actually spawn both on the left side of the map, and it just creates a different dynamic. Air-to-air rush distance, because of that, is relatively short, and all of the timings are just a little bit different. And in my mind, Solar is a very standard player. Solar doesn't really mix it up all too much. He does mix in timing attacks every once in a while, but I can imagine that this is the type of map that does favor GuMiho's playstyle. Now, he's actually going for a second Reaper, which is a bit weird. Generally speaking, you go for the Marine. A second Reaper is okay. Obviously, you can still use it to clean up a bunch of Zerglings, but it does cut into your gas production a little bit. 50 gas in order to make a single Reaper, together with 50 minerals. And obviously, a Marine, well, is the same cost as a Reaper, minus all of the gas. It does mean that he can put on a little bit more pressure, but this should be quite defendable right now for the Zerg. He's got a couple of Lings waiting on the high ground. 3 of them, actually. And there is one Reaper going around the main base too. He needs to kill at least a drone. And you know what? There you go. Gets the job done. Job's done. Well, he also died. It's a little sad maybe for the Reaper. Cyclone on the back of this after... What is going on here? This is weird. We don't have a reactor because of the positioning right there of the barracks. It's a Battlecruiser rush. There's a reason Battlecruiser rushes aren't very popular anymore these days. This is an exceptionally fast fusion core though, 3.5 minutes. That is very quick. We have Cyclones here, which are good for base defense, but the thing is, Solar is certainly looking at this, and he will notice that the norm is to use this barracks to build a reactor, to put it onto the factory, so you can start pumping out those Hellions 2 at a time. It's a reactor on the back of this right now, but this scout can obviously not reach the main base. He starts up a Banshee. That Banshee is fake. He doesn't want the Zerg player to see exactly what's going on. He wants him to see that it's just a good old cloaking build. For the time being, at the very least, Zerg has no idea what's happening. Battlecruiser starts up. Okay. Now, there's no wall at the front door. Generally speaking, this would be the point where the 3rd CC would start up. But since Battlecruisers are 400 minerals, 300 gas... It is a little bit... No. Gumi! Gumi dies to anything now. This is... Like, the Battlecruiser is strong, don't get me wrong, but literally any push here from the Zerg would just straight up kill him. We're even gonna go for the weapon refit. Lair starts up right here for Solar, who's made a bunch of Zerglings here. It's 12 links. 22, I guess, in total, soon to be. These are usually for base defense, but this is a little funky, guys. All he has seen is 2 Reapers and a Hellion and a Cyclone. That is not the norm at all. There's nothing in the wall of, oh, this could be a really embarrassing game for Gumi. Is he gonna die to 20 Zerglings? Is he... I mean, the Battlecruiser is gonna be out, but that is an awful lot of damage being done right here by the Zerg player. This isn't even an attack. Like, this is Solar just testing the waters. All right, well, there is a Spore Crawler inside of the main base to deal with, for example, a Banshee, but GuMiho... All right, well, he was cooking up something special. And if he was given another 30 seconds, it would have been delicious. But it turns out the house burned down. Don't you just hate it when you accidentally win the game? What are you? That's what Solar is screaming right now. 2 slices of bread on either side of GuMiho's head. To be fair, if it would have worked out, right? It's one of those games. If it would have worked out, everybody would like, oh my god, GuMiho, you are so smart. That is the best build order I've ever seen. GuMiho, everybody loves GuMiho, right? But then when it doesn't work out, you look a little bit foolish. Yeah. If he would have just planted that 3rd command center as part of the natural wall-off though, which is of course the norm when you do go for a delayed CC, he would have been fine. Like, he could have used the Hellion for the base defense. He could have just parked it in the natural expansion and nothing would have really gone wrong there. Little bit unfortunate. Command center on the low ground. As a very... GuMiho, what are we doing? We lose game number 1 to something embarrassing, so in game number 2 we go for a CC first? Okay. This is very much so, by the way. We've seen this as well previously in other series featuring Solar. This is very much so players abusing Solar's playstyle. Solar is very safe. Solar definitely does not like to mix things up. He does it every once in a while, but very rarely will he actually go for a big switch up. He likes playing macro, he likes stacking up all the way to lurkers, he likes just sitting back and playing SimCity. And it's obviously a viable playstyle, but when your opponent just hard counters everything you do, it can get a little bit messy for sure. So CC first, terrible build on the ladder, terrible build against a more aggressive Zerg. I don't think GuMiho would ever do this against like Dark, or maybe even Raynar, maybe even Serral, because you can get punished really, really hard. But what are the odds of Solar going for a pool first build? What are the odds of Solar going for an all-in? And at this point, it's already a little too late. Solar's gonna find out. Yeah, when the command center finishes. Okay, so. Interesting follow-up here as well from Gumi. He's gonna go straight into the factory. We've seen quite a bit of Bjorn. So Bjorn has been going a lot of command center first into quick triple CC with triple barracks. I've always liked that build. I think it's very greedy, obviously. But when you can get away with it, which I think you can do most of the time against Solar, you, should be able to get a massive economy and then also a really lovely timing attack to boot. But I think this should be still very playable right here, of course, for Gumi. We'll have to see exactly what the follow-up is going to be. Reactor here is not too weird, but it's a little bit mistimed. Mostly because the factory will be long done. Ah. So are we gonna just go straight into a starport? There is a 3rd command center coming up right now. Are we gonna go and follow this up with a quick starport? Are we gonna go Cyclone production after this? No. Second gas will finish up momentarily. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, this is the safest thing you can ever do, but sometimes it's so safe that it's actually dangerous. So it's gonna allow Solar to figure out exactly what's going on the other side of the map, but it's not really gonna allow him to really do anything about it. So this may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but say for example, Terran decides to go for a 2-base all-in. Yes, you can go for Overlord speed and scout exactly what they're doing, but you will not have the resources anymore to then spend on the base defense instead. This is not a cheap upgrade to get for the Zerg player in the earlier stages of the game. It cuts into your queen production, because obviously it's a hatchery that has to produce the Pneumatized Carapace. And now that he scouts that his opponent is playing very greedy... This is weird. Anyways, now that he scouted that his opponent is very greedy, there's really nothing he can do to attack the opponent either. So, I like Pneumatized Carapace, because technically it keeps you very safe. But realistically, it also doesn't really allow you to do anything if your opponent decided to go for an all-in. And if your opponent decides to play hyper greedy, yeah, you also can't really react. So he's scouting around everything. He sees exactly what's happening. But, yeah, I guess the knowledge is still useful. So did he finish? No, he did not finish the... So he faked the cloaking upgrade by building the Raven energy upgrade. Now he shows his opponent a single Banshee, and then he follows it up with a Raven instead. I can't even tell if this is a mind game that GuMiho is playing or a misclick. Maybe he meant to go for a Banshee here? Because generally you'd make 2 Banshees at the same time. Or, well, not at the same time, right after one another. Faking the upgrade, then canceling the upgrade, but then still going for the upgrade that the... what a mess. I wonder if he meant to make a Raven. Yeah, I think so. It's rallied over here to the natural. This will be spotted as well by Solar. And I'm pretty sure Solar will be quite happy about all of this. He's decided that the greed he wants to do, so this is him following up with a greedy build, right? So he's seen that his opponent really doesn't have any plans of attacking anytime soon. And when that's the case, you can get away with double upgrades as Zerg, and also a pretty fast 4th base. So this is all before making the lair. It means that he doesn't really need to get his Baneling speed as quickly. And I guess Solar now gets to play the game that he wanted to play at the very least, right? He's been looking to play a long game in basically every match that he plays right now, so... apparently, that's what he's going to be able to do. Upon saturating the full 3 bases, we're already going to go for a macro hatchery 2. That's just going to be there for larva generation, so he can actually afford making Lingbane. At this point, though, the Baneling speed will obviously be late. And because of the Baneling speed being late, he needs to stay on creep. Not much he can do. The queens are waiting, though. And while the Raven is a detector and really good at shutting down some of that creep spread, so far, the queens are doing a good job protecting all of it. A 5th hatchery starts up. Okay. It's a 6th hatchery, but the 5th base. We're just playing big macro now. Basically what's going on here is both players are skipping the early game and they're trying to see if they can skip the mid game as well. Alright. Baneling drops? Baneling drops? Really? Marines coming in stimming. We'll have to see if those Banelings can achieve something. Well, he is going to try and see if he can get something done over on the right side of the map. There's a lot of Terran army currently moving across. Oh my god, this is not something Terrans ever expect. Yeah, he got a little greedy there. He could have dropped him out a bit sooner. Good crisis management right there by Gumi. I thought for a second I was going to get the entire mineral line, but in the end, it got very little. Banshee got a similar amount of kills on her way out. +2/+2 started up for the Zerg player at basically the same timing here as the Terrans. Another command center coming up here for Gumi. At this point, though, this is a really nice situation here for Solar. The only thing I don't really like is that he doesn't have a hive going yet. Nice pickup. There's a huge Zergling counterattack. But there should be enough units here for the Terran to deflect this. Yep, great usage right there of the wall off. The norm is to rally all of your Terran units onto, yeah, the supply depot. So that's the mistake right there. GuMiho re-rallies. Generally speaking, you rally onto the one lower depot in your wall off. So that way the Marines accidentally create a choke point there. So GuMiho a little further forward, but not a big deal. In the meantime, okay. The Hellbats are nice. They did do a decent job protecting the siege tanks, but ultimately the siege tanks did fall. That was costly though. Yeah, he's still making non-stop army here. 79 drones is quite good, but this does kind of feel like GuMiho is starting to run away with a lot of fights. As long as you pick up in time and the Banelings don't really connect, you can get a ton of value out of Marines. And so far, I'm really liking this here by Gumi. His economy is decent, right? Like, we should have really seen... God, there's so many Marines waiting. We should have probably seen this command center fly on over already. But 2-2 is just about to finish up, and that's going to give him a massive, massive power spike. So if we move right now with this army, there's a very good chance GuMiho is going to be able to deal critical amounts of damage. I mean, right now the Hive is going. Lurker Den is coming up. But you can see that greedy early game really kicking in right now. A massive amount of supply, a stupid amount of production, and very fast upgrades. 4th command center too, so he didn't actually commit to like an all-in here. You can go for the 8 barracks before the 4th command center. Not what Gumi is doing. I would love to see a Ghost Academy coming up as well. He doesn't yet have one. 2nd factory would also not be a bad idea, but GuMiho is just sticking around on marine production for now. This is essentially him just going full parade push straight through the center of the map. You can actually just set your rally points right now too. The main problem here for the Terran at this point is that there's still quite a bit of creep, so he cleared out the base on the left. Solar does have a light at the end of the tunnel, and that's the lurkers, but he can't quite afford the lurker upgrades. And without the ranged, at the very least, the seismic spines, those lurkers are kind of mediocre. Instead, Solar has decided to use his gas on get a bunch of Vipers going, which is nice and all. But in the meantime, on the other side of the map, GuMiho is spending his on getting a whole load of upgrades. Now, I don't know why GuMiho is playing Marine mono battles. I don't really think we need to just make Marines here, Gumi. Why are we not making a 2nd factory? Why are we not making a transition towards a late game army? Why are we not adding on additional... Okay, now we're just rallying. We're just sending everything we've got towards the other side of the map. This is dangerous. We're gonna go Fusion Core? I'm assuming this is for Liberator ranged, but it's Gumi, so we never know. Lurker's coming up though. Seismic Spine on the production tab, and when this upgrade finishes, suddenly this bio army is gonna get shredded. Those Vipers, I mean, they don't have any counter yet, other than Marines. But Blinding Clouds, Abductions, all of it is a very viable choice. With Lurkers in the right position, you can't really stim Marines into Lurkers, right? I mean, sometimes we see Beyond doing that, but there's the little spines. Soon to be the big spines. What is it with Terran players at the highest level recently trying to play the no ghost challenge? I don't want to be a StarCraft 2 conspiracy theorist, but it does kind of feel like Terrans are predicting a ghost nerf, and they're trying to prove to us that we don't need ghosts. We're trying to kill lurkers with Marines. Yeah, I don't like that at all, Gumi. Completely unnecessary. Right before 3-3 finished up as well. We just plummeted as far as the supply count goes. We're just playing the no ghost challenge. We've seen Clem do this as well. We've seen a bunch of the top tier Terrans do this as of late. It's almost like they kind of want to lose. Although it turns out Marines are still pretty good against the absolute top tier units though of Zerg. So these are tier 3 lurkers, tier 3 Vipers, still getting killed by the Marines. Maybe it's not quite telling the story, GuMiho, that you want to be telling here. Look, ghosts are totally fine. Maybe the unit we need to be getting, you know, a little bit of a reduction on is the... No, maybe not the Marine. They know that the Marine will never get nerfed. It's too core of a unit. Okay, well, honestly, because of this, Solar now has a real opportunity at clawing his way back into the game. We went Fusion Core for the freaking Medevac upgrade? That's Caduceus Reactor. It makes the Medevac's regen energy faster. Okay. We do have additional starports coming though, and he did queue up the Advanced Ballistics upgrade as well. I don't understand. We've seen this from a bunch of Terrans lately. They get a free pass straight to the late game army, to all of the command centers that they can ever dream of, which is what all the Terrans have been trying to play for like the last half year, but when they get the free pass, they don't take it. So suddenly that's making Solar's army really quite strong. At this point, it's really just Marine Marauder Medevac, to counter Lurker, Viper, Ling, Bane. I mean, it's technically a viable comp, but it's kind of dangerous. The lucky thing here for Gumi is that Zerg is not able to really get all of those Lurkers across the map. But imagine those Lurkers. I mean, there's 10 of them. Imagine them burrowed right over here. It'd be really difficult for GuMiho to break. GuMiho is still not going for a Ghost Academy. Instead, his answer to fighting this ground Zerg style is going to be the good old Liberator. Yeah, and at this point, honestly, though, even though I don't really agree with the unit composition here from GuMiho, he's doing an amazing job just keeping his opponent contained, right? So this is him saying, yo, you can have 4 bases, but no more than that. And in the meantime, he has just secured his 5th. And obviously at that point, the Terran can start, well, Zerging the Swarm. What about the cost efficiency? Yeah, still heavily in favor of Terran. So all of this is fine. Just why are we not making... They're so good against the only units from Zerg here that are scary. They're so good against the Vipers and the Lurkers. It's like Solar wrote in the pre-game lobby. Bet you can't win against me if you don't make ghosts. And GuMiho said, bet! That's what we're doing now. So the Liberator count is growing. The only really proper counter that Zerg has to these units would be Corruptors. But if you're in a pinch, you can definitely go Hydras together with Vipers as well. It does work. If you can abduct them one at a time, Hydra, Lurker, Viper really does shut down most Terran unit composition at this point that isn't Ghosts. So Ghosts get absolutely murdered. Or sorry, the Zerg army that I just described gets absolutely murdered by Ghosts. But when Terran does not go Ghosts, Hydra, Lurker, Viper hits like a truck. With Zergling, Baneling, run-bys, it's not to be underestimated. Yeah, and this is gonna be basically a donation. Super expensive donation right there. There is, however, another push over here on the left side of the map. GuMiho once more denies the 5th base. And essentially his entire game plan right now is very similar to what a Zerg would do against a Turtle Terran. He is just never allowing the Zerg player to get a 5th base going. And you're gonna run out of cash. Maybe 20 minutes into the game, Solar will be broke. He's already running out of money here, actually. He's had an income advantage, but that is starting to dwindle right now. Whereas GuMiho still has full map control. He's got a bunch of additional command centers. He's even becoming next door neighbors now with the Zerg, as he's expanding right over here. We're just not doing Ghosts. I know GuMiho isn't necessarily known for his amazing micro, but he certainly is capable of microing spellcasters, okay? He's just not doing it. Sometimes it's easy to get lazy, right, when you're playing a game of StarCraft. You're like, you know what? I don't want to play spellcasters today. Like, I don't want to. Lurkers have finally found their way across. GuMiho, however, going for a orbital here rather than a planetary, which I do kind of like. He never even made the academy, though. He's had so much money to play with, but yeah, now he's running out because he's been trading horribly. But he had so much money in the bank when he was maxed out to just put down the Ghost Academy. It's not that expensive. It's no fleet beacon anyways. Ultimately, he doesn't need it. He obtains the victory in game number 2. They are the Terran elite, born to compete, never retreat. Ghost transition. Well, it never happened. Maybe GuMiho didn't need it. It's a little dangerous. It seems a little unnecessary to me. But we've now played 2 weird games in a row. So game number 1, Battlecruiser Rush, he lost to 12 Zerglings. That one was a little embarrassing. Game number 2, unnecessarily difficult, but he ultimately made it there in the end. You know what I would really love right now for GuMiho is like a 2-base Ghost opener. We never see Ghost openers on any less than 4 bases. There were some strange ghost builds back in the day. And if you don't know how to counter it, it's actually quite difficult. But obviously Solar is not to be underestimated. Yeah, so I liked what Solar was doing in the previous game. He just never really got the ball going. And I feel like that's... I don't want to look into this all too much. But I really feel like at the highest level, when you see Zerg players going Overlord speed, the games always kind of look like that. And it's not necessarily because of the Overlord speed, but when you go Overlord speed, you really do take quite a big hit early on as far as your queen production goes, and therefore your creep spread, and all of your advancements from there. It's just such a passive way to play that it doesn't really allow you to go anywhere. The only thing you can do is just absorb every attack. And Solar did a decent job absorbing all of those attacks, but he never really got any damage done on the other side. So it's... I don't know. It's a working theory of mine, but I feel like the games always look like that when Zergs go into Overlord speed to figure out exactly what's going on. I really feel like it's almost bait. Like, it looks like a strong play. It seems like a no-brainer to go Overlord speed. But then I rarely see Zerg players going for that upgrade and then winning with it. We see it every once in a while. Like Serral, for example, does it sometimes when he's playing like the first round of a tournament. So say Serral is going up against like somebody who's like 2000 MMR below him. Like say I'm playing against Serral, there's a very good chance he would go Overlord speed, right? But most of the time at the highest level, when you're going up against an opponent who's also extremely good, unlike me, I think it's bait to go Overlord speed. I don't really like it. Okay. Very, very quick starport here from GuMiho. We'll have to see where this goes. Are we gonna go Tech Lab? Are we just gonna play Banshees? I mean, I'm asking myself mostly because we've seen him already rush out Battlecruisers in the previous game. Or the previous... well, the previous games, rather. 3.5 minute fusion core. Generally speaking, with Battlecruiser builds, you are expected to make a third gas geyser, but if you line it up well, you don't really need it. This is a different start, though. Nah, this should just be good old Banshees. Yep. In the pipe. 5x5. Ooh. Link speed is done right now. Good timing right there for Solar. He lined that up perfectly. That's why he lines up the metabolic boost just like that. Sometimes these timings may seem a little bit random, but that's a good example as to why the standard openers are the standard. That upgrade finished no earlier than it absolutely needed to finish, but also no later. Easy cleanup. It's gonna be Banshee speed right now, and this really does make the game a bit trickier though for the Terran. Losing 2 Hellions like that, it really does make... what? Okay. It really does make the game a little bit more complex. We're going Cyclones now. Okay. Okay. What are we gonna do with the Cyclones? Generally, what you do with Cyclones is lose them to Zerglings. Speaking of which, though, the Zerglings just got roasted. GuMiho is holding a barbecue on the side of the Zerg. Everybody's invited. These Hellions are unlikely to make it out, though. Although I say that. Okay, nice targeting right there by Solar. No Spore Crawler over at the third base. He lined up the drones, my god. What a mess right here for the Zerg. This was never supposed to happen, especially considering he killed those first 2 Hellions. But in his mind, because he killed those first 2 Hellions, he didn't need base defenses anymore on the back of it, because there was no way GuMiho was gonna commit. Well, it turns out there was a way. And it now cost him 16 drones. Woo! That's a lot of workers in total. On the back of this, we're gonna go into a lair. We're gonna go double armory! GuMiho is going mech? Hold up, so... Battlecruiser rush in game number 1. A ghost refusal in game number 2 into Terran mech in game number 3? If you would have covered up the player nicknames, I would have known it was GuMiho. No way. No way anybody else does this. So again, there's a reason why we don't see a lot of Terran mech. Sometimes Terrans try to mech it happen. Sorry. Sometimes they try, but it's pretty mediocre. It's what the kids would call mid. Problem is, mostly, you can defend against all the Zerg attacks, yes. You can deal damage on the other side of the map too, yes. But ultimately, you do lose map control pretty quick. And when you lose map control, the best playstyle for Zerg usually, and for Terrans and for Protoss players alike, whenever you go up against mech, is to contain the meching Terran on just a couple of bases. So if you can contain them on like 4 bases at most and never allow them a 5th, much like the style that we saw GuMiho play against Solar in the previous game, they will just sort of fizzle out over time. So generally it is like a long game that you play against Terran mech, but Terran mech has a difficult time taking new bases and, well, all the other things that Bio is really good at. In the meantime though, Solar has decided to mix it up. Macroman Solar has decided to follow this up right now with an all-in of his own. This is the first time, I believe, he really realizes that it's Cyclones, although he may have had a glimpse of it already. I wasn't quite paying attention there. They may have actually driven into the creep already. The Queens are just about to drop into the natural expansion. This could become a little awkward, because Queens don't really deal that much damage. Queens surround. They do need a little bit of creep in order to transfuse each other, so that's why they're bringing those Overlords into the mix. On Siege Tanks, though, together with those SCVs, not messing around. In the meantime, the Ravagers, the Zerglings, and the Roaches here trying to just get damage done wherever they can. Quite a few SCVs, though, are going down. Solar not letting go of the Zergling button yet, but I wonder if he should have actually given up on this. Should he not just go back to droning? Well, apparently he wants to try and see if he can kill these Banshees, but not enough anti-air available anymore. I don't believe, because of that, that GuMiho is gonna die here. I'm pretty sure GuMiho will be able to clean this up. Question is, at what cost? Reinforcing Zerglings, running over towards the 3rd base. There was no evacuation right there from the Terran. He's doing a little bit of SCV drilling to try and maximize the damage. Okay, and after, well, losing a ton of drones at home, he just killed a ton of SCVs on the other side of the map. And guess what? The game goes on. Roach Ravager going up against Cyclone Tank. We even had a contamination right there from the Overseer onto the factory. The real advantage right here for the Terran, though, is this right over here. So one of the common approaches with Terran mech is the full bulldozer style, right? So maybe you have a hard time expanding, maybe you have a very difficult time taking up the map and harassing the opponent and all that. But what you can do is make a death ball of units. And generally speaking, that death ball, well, it's gonna either max out with 2-2 or a little bit later with 3-3. That's an army that will be difficult to stop for the Zerg player. So it doesn't matter, right? I mean, we're not done yet, though. Solar apparently wants to continue this aggression. He's actually still not making drones. I wonder if this is another misplay right here by Solar, but I mean, maybe he's got enough stuff. The siege tank numbers, though, are growing. There's at this point only 2 of them. He starts up a couple more. He's brought new queens to the other side of the map, too. Okay. Loads of SCVs are going down once more. But at this point, GuMiho is still totally fine as far as the worker count goes. Okay. You're not gonna break this. I don't see how you're gonna break this again. I mean, we can try. In the meantime, there are some Hellbats on the other side of the map. The Banshees have also decided to go across. Baller move right there by GuMiho, who's decided, yeah, I don't actually need these units for base defense. Instead, I'll just use them on the offense instead. A new queen, though, just spawned out of the main hatch. There's now 3 siege tanks here set up for base defense. Solar is going to try and see if he can overwhelm this from here. Okay. Nice biles. But the bases are in some trouble. And in the meantime, 2-2 is still ticking. Very expensive, though. I always wonder if maybe you should cancel it and favor more unit production instead. But apparently we're going to double down, which does indicate to me that GuMiho is feeling quite confident. Siege tank is being repaired, but it's not quite fast enough for those corrosive biles to land. Banshee is actually just working on the hatch. 26 confirmed kills on a single Banshee. This is now 2-2 kicking in here for the mechanical units, rather. Okay. Now, as the dust settles, Zerg has still lost a ton of resources, and the income right now for this Terran player is still superior. There's a lot of good creep spread, though. The entire map is now the main base of Solar. He successfully reduced the Terran player to just 2 base economy, but he only has 30 drones in the meantime himself. He's starting to mix in some drones once again, but he's also making some army units still, which, yeah. I guess the idea is to just try and contain the Terran now. So at the 12-minute mark, generally speaking, the main and the natural will run out. I mean, there's gonna be a little bit of mining left, but Solar right now is effectively creating a 2-base containment. This is the StarCraft 2 equivalent of surrounding the city walls. Oh, you know what we need? Thors. Now what do we need Thors for, you may be wondering? I'm not sure. They are big and sturdy, I guess, so you can deal a lot of damage with them. I wouldn't mind more siege tank production personally, but he's actually doubling down on the Thors. He's going 2 Thors at a time. I mean, you can obviously dodge corrosive biles with Thors. The Hellbats are gonna continue onwards though, so GuMiho is sneaking medevacs around the map. I love, by the way, that he opened up straight Terran mech and he's making medevacs. Bit of a funky thing to do, but he's treating them like dropships more so than medevacs. Not here for healing, although they still do a little bit of that as well. Oh my god. Did Solar just commit as well to fighting over here on the other side of the map? I don't think he did. Nope, he just taps out. He never even tried. He knew he wasn't gonna break that. Big Daddy Thor hits the battlefield, and immediately the game is over. Well done right here by GuMiho. Very fun series.